All right, hello everybody, and welcome back to a video. It's a little bit different than I've done in the past. In the past, I've, written a script and thrown some shitty gameplay in the background. In this one, I want to react to these Jordan Peterson clips that have gone viral over the past few days. I also want to touch a little bit on Nick Fuentes, this guy. If you don't know him, he's like a figure on the far right. And the reason I want to do this is because I do agree with basically the assessment that these clips have marked a shift in the political scene, one that will render a lot of these old conservative figures like Peterson and Kirk as somewhat obsolete. I think that people are seeing through the the pseudo-intellectual facade that people like Peterson have put up for all these years. And what that means is that there are probably going to be shifts on the right such that new people will come and take their place. That's one of the reasons that I'm reacting to Fuentes, because he's a prime candidate for what the right is going to look like in the future. And I think that a lot of his stuff is like laughably stupid, and so it's worth just kind of examining a little bit. There are some other contenders. I could see something like colorblind meritocracy becoming big on the right, as instantiated with figures like Vivek Ramaswamy or J.D. Vance. But in the online space specifically, I think that people like Fuentes have a stranglehold on the far right for, whatever reason. We'll get into that. But first, I want to start just by reacting to these clips and, sort of assessing, how damning this is for someone like Peterson, because these clips have gotten millions of views. They are remarkable in that they have engendered a response that is against Peterson in basically everyone who's seen them. You see over here Destiny reacting to it. Jordan Peterson gets angry in a 1 versus 20 debate. Nick called them out. Parker and Danny have been doing victory laps on Twitter. Basically everyone can see just that this was very discrediting. So without further ado, let's just start. Let's get into this first clip and look at what we have here. So this is Parker. I'm going to put it at like 1.5 just so this video doesn't last forever. But this is Parker debating, what's his name? Peterson, sorry. Yeah, let's see it.
All of Catholic social theory. How about that, Christian?
Sure. So do you believe in the all-knowing, all-powerful, all-good notion of God?
What do you mean by believe?
Do you think it to be true?
That's the circular definition. What do you mean when you say you believe?
How is that circular?
Because you added no content to the answer by substituting the word true and believe.
I said you think it to be true.
All right. So if you believe something, you stake your life on it.
What do you mean by that?
You live for it and you die for it.
Okay, so he posits this ridiculous notion of believe. It's extremely dramatic, and it has belief has a necessary condition of you being willing to die. So if you're not willing to die, contrapositively, you don't believe in it. It's obviously absurd. This is classic Jordan Peterson, just sort of being dramatic and hoping that drama takes the place of actual substance. So yeah,
that's what I mean by that. It isn't something that you say. It isn't something that's associated with logical consistency. It's not declarative. It's not propositional. It's not a bay.
Sorry, I just want to, dude, this posture on the part of Parker is really bad. It's a bad look.
It's associated with logical consistency. It's not declarative. It's not propositional. It's not a figment of your imagination. It's the presupposition of your attention and your action. And you're either fragmented, in which case you worship multiple gods, or there's some unity at the bottom of it that makes you an unstoppable force.
It really is like just laughable. Just listening to Jordan Peterson talk, I don't know how anyone ever really took him seriously, but whatever.
Okay, so you're saying that you don't believe something if you wouldn't die for it?
Not really, no.
Okay. So then,
how would you define belief? Something you say?
Okay, so I explain. Like, I could believe it is the case that this pen exists, but if someone threatened my life, right, I would lie in order to be able to save my life, right? Like I think you would do that too. You wouldn't lie to save your life.
Don't be so sure.
You wouldn't lie to save your life?
How much do you know about me? I didn't lie to save my career. I didn't lie to save my clinical practice.
Would you lie to like save your children, your mom, your dad?
I don't think lying would save them.
Can there ever be a circumstance logically that lying could save someone?
Yeah, and if you're steeped in sin, you're likely to live in circumstances like that.
I'll give you an example. If you're in Nazi Germany, and it is the case that there's Jewish people in your attic and you're trying to protect them, would you lie to the Nazis?
I would have done everything I bloody well could, so I wouldn't be in that situation to begin with. It's a hypothetical, and it's not answerable. No, I can't answer a hypothetical like that because it's far.
I've seen a lot of people comment on this part, and they'll bring up the this is just such a midwit talking point. The whole like, how would you feel if you didn't eat breakfast? Like, tell me you're an idiot without telling me you're an idiot if you actually use that as like a diagnostic tool. Jordan Peterson can engage in hypotheticals. The reason that he's not engaging in this hypothetical is because he is terrified of getting caught in a rhetorical trap. It's not that he can't engage in hypotheticals. I wanted to comment on that because I keep seeing people post that. It's like, it's usually right-wingers who post the breakfast meme, but it's just so stupid. Like, very few people are so stupid and bereft of intelligence such that they can't engage in a hypothetical. Like, I've never met anyone in my life who couldn't engage in a hypothetical. And, you know, a previous Harvard professor with a PhD, Jordan Peterson, obviously can engage in hypotheticals. So, but whatever.
Look, don't play games.
I'm not playing games.
Yes, you are. If you present me with an intractable moral choice that's stripped of context and you back me into a corner, you're playing game. I just told you I would do everything that I could to make sure that I'm never in that situation. By the time you've got there, you've made so many mistakes that there's nothing you can do that isn't a sin.
Being born in Nazi Germany and trying to protect people that you care about, like there could be a Jewish friend that you have, and you want to protect them.
I think you should just give up on that line of questioning.
Give up on just like trying to clarify your position? Because you don't like, are you like uncomfortable with me asking this question? It's just a basic hypothetical. Like I could ask you.
It's just a basic hypothetical where you put Jews' lives at stake in Nazi Germany. That's just a basic.
See, this is Peterson's trick. He just doesn't engage. It's not a lack of capability. It's an unwillingness to engage with ideas. It's a rhetorical trick. It just saves them from having to ever take any position.
Obviously, you would lie in that scenario to save their life, but you're like not trying to answer this question for some reason.
I just told you why.
Are you anti-fascist? Like, so you're
Why
anti-fascist?
are you asking that?
I was just asking, just clarifying. But like, again, you're not answering this hypothetical because you know it shows that you clearly would lie to save someone's life.
I'm answering it in a manner you don't find acceptable.
Obviously, because I care about truth.
I wouldn't be in that scenario.
Obviously, right? Logically, because that's already happened. Like that's in the past. You don't have a time travel device. We're bringing this logical hypothetical up to show you that in some circumstances that do happen within the real world, you would lie to save people's lives. So your definition of truth isn't actually how we're typically using it. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to muddy the waters when I ask you, like, do you believe this? Do you think this to be true? So you don't actually have to answer the questions. And plenty of Christians don't like that because they clearly see that you don't really want to be associated with Christianity.
I can imagine that I was in a situation where the best I could do as a consequence of my previous mistakes was to tell the least amount of lie I could manage. But that would likely indicate that I had made all sorts of catastrophic errors on my way there.
So you would lie to save someone's life. So again, you do believe it to be true in that circumstance, even though you like lied in that scenario. So
not without the context that I put it in.
You were not willing to die for it. You were not willing to let other people die for it. So that's not what you see to be true then, seemingly.
You're doing exactly what I said you were doing at the beginning of the conversation. You're generating an impossible, restricted, hypothetical with no precursors to back me into a corner.
How's it possible? Is there something contradictory about it? Nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you too. Yeah.
So embarrassing performance on Jordan Peterson's part. Just he comes up with this really ridiculous notion of belief, which entails a willingness to die. He goes on to say that if you're ever in a situation where you have to lie to save someone's life, you necessarily have made a series of wrong decisions. It's just absolute nonsense. He, takes issue with the use of the word belief, a very commonsensical notion. So that one was pretty embarrassing. But the one that really has gone viral is this next one with Danny. I've seen this guy on TikTok before. Let's see it.
Hey, Dr. Peterson.
How are you doing?
Danny, nice to meet you.
What's your name?
Danny.
Danny.
You're saying atheists worship things or people or places, whatever. Can you be very clear about your definition of worship again?
Attend to, prioritize, and sacrifice for.
Okay, that's it. That's your understanding of worship.
Well, I could flesh it out, but that'll do for the time we have.
Okay. Do Catholics attend to Mary?
Oh, yes.
Okay. So do they fit that description of worship?
Yes.
So you would say Catholics and other people that revere Mary, like the Eastern Orthodox tradition, worship Mary.
Well, they might not put her in the highest
But
place.
you would put it that way.
Okay, that is so performative, the way Parker is like, dude, has he really cooked that hard where your
Other
mouth
people that
is
revere Mary,
agape?
like the Eastern Orthodox tradition, worship Mary.
Well, they might not put her in
Really? Like, is this that groundbreaking? I'm sorry, I just had a comment on that. They do this all the time in these Jubilee debates.
the highest
But
place.
you would put it that way.
No.
You just said it. Now you're taking it back
There's
now?
still a hierarchy.
Okay, there's a hierarchy, but within the
There's something at the top.
All right, you can worship things
Mary is
below.
quite a ways up the hierarchy, but not at the top.
Let's go over your definition of worship again. What's your definition of worship?
Attend to,
Attend to. Do
prioritize,
Do
and
Catholics
sacrifice for.
What do Catholics attend to? Do they prioritize Mary over all other human beings?
No, I didn't say overall, did I? I didn't add that to my definition.
You understand?
I said there was a hierarchy as well.
You attend to
So you can attend to something trivially, or you can attend to it deeply.
And now
there's
you're
a-
adding stuff to the definition. But your original
I
definition.
added the hierarchy part at the beginning.
Are you
just
familiar?
didn't understand it.
Are you familiar with the Immaculate Conception?
Why is that relevant?
Because you go to a Catholic church, I'm sure you've attended recently. You're interested in Catholicism, aren't you?
Sure.
All right. Are you familiar with their doctrines?
Somewhat.
Okay. You're
Their
familiar.
doctrines are
How
very
do they
deep.
regard Mary?
Why are you asking me that?
Because you're a Christian.
You say that. I haven't claimed that.
Oh, what is this? Is this Christians versus atheists?
I don't know.
You don't know where you are right now.
Don't be a smartass.
Well,
and I mean,
either you're a
'cause I
Christian
won't
or you're
talk to
not.
you if you're a smartass.
Oh, either you're a Christian or you're not. Which one is it?
I could be either of them, but I don't have to tell you.
You don't have to tell me. I was under the impression I was invited to talk to a Christian. Am I not talking to a Christian?
No, you were invited to.
I think everyone should look at the title of the YouTube channel. You're probably in the wrong YouTube video.
You're really quite something, you are.
Aren't I? But you're really quite nothing. Right? You're not a Christian.
Okay, I'm done with him.
Okay, so that's the next clip, and that one was really bad for Jordan because you know the questioning was kind of sloppy on Danny's part at moments, but it really exposes the unwillingness on Peterson's part to commit to any position, and it just makes him look dishonest, like a grifter, like he's just playing into various identities such that he can gain an audience and gain a foothold on the culture. Without actually committing to or believing in any of the things that he espouses. So, yeah, I mean, these are the clips, and they are pretty damning for Peterson. We're not going to go over the Kirk ones, but there were some moments that Kirk also got embarrassed, though to a lesser degree. But I think the takeaway here is this, that it is true that these right-wingers, these canonical right-wingers, are basically unable to stand up to pretty basic scrutiny. These guys are kind of sophists a lot of the times. Some of their lines of questioning are either dishonest or just founded on an improper understanding of logic or the various concepts that they employ, and so their inability to combat them kind of just speaks to their ineptitude as figures, because again, this is what they do for a living. So these are bad clips, but I think one of the things I want to focus on in this video is the reaction amongst other right-wingers like Nick to these clips. So I have a little bit pulled up here. We're not going to watch, this is the 38-minute video, but I want to watch specifically like about 4 minutes or so of this. I don't remember where I'm going to stop, but I'll stop it. I make comments along the way, but this is Nick Fuentes. He is again, like this far right figure, a white nationalist kind of guy. Very, unfortunate physiognomy. But without further ado, let's just get into this.
You are nothing. And so
Hold on, I have it on 2x. I'll put it on 1.5.
I saw those clips, and I can't be the only one that sees this is the revolution. To borrow a phrase, they say the revolution won't be televised. I hate that expression. But there's some truth in it in the sense that the changes that we see in politics, like, for example, Trump getting elected, they are prefigured by a change in people's attitudes and perspectives, which happens silently over a long period of time. It happens quietly. The contradictions are present first in the minds of people, and only then are the contradictions resolved in politics, in activism, in society. And so I can't be the only one that saw Charlie Kirk get blown out on that point. Jordan Peterson get blown out on that point and realize the end is nigh for the conservative grifter. It's over. Because everybody that has put these people up on a pedestal, Peterson and Charlie Kirk have all the answers. If I hear a left-wing argument, I go to Charlie Kirk and Peterson to hear why that's not true. They've got all the answers. They're the masters of knowledge. They're the fountain of knowledge. But if Jordan Peterson gets blown out by some Redditor in those glasses, if Charlie Kirk gets blown out by some Cambridge student on that subject, it's the usual suspects. It seems like the left-wing debate bros have won. And that is not going to extinguish the right wing. On the contrary, it's going to extinguish those basic bitch conservatives. It is they that cannot live with those contradictions. The contradictions are apparent. They have been forced to the surface so that everybody can see them. Everybody's thinking about them. That is always in the back of people's minds. And now people accept nothing less than the real thing. We don't want to hear another fake Christian that is just going to get challenged on whether they even believe in Christ. We don't want another fake nationalist who can't even say they don't support Israel. Can't bring themselves to say we don't support that war. Can't call out the most pervasive and most problematic foreign influence lobby. So I saw those two clips and I said, I think that's it. I think that's curtains. And if the left has all that energy, if the left, Parker and Dean Withers and Harry Sisson and all those guys, that whole group of guys, if the young, energetic, thoughtful young people that are going viral and blowing up on TikTok, if they're on the other side, if they're on the left, that spells a lot of trouble for the right wing and all their casuals, all their casual, vaguely conservative people that, they want to show up to the Charlie Kirk thing and get their signed MAGA hat or something. It spells the end for them. And I think this is why, for the longest time, conservatives have been so threatened by me, by Andrew Tate, by Ye, all of these big canceled, the ones that remain.
Dude, I'm sorry. The far right is just such a joke. Like, this is the list of intellectuals on the far right. Let's hear that again real quick.
conservatives have been so threatened by me,
By Fuentes, college dropout.
by Andrew Tate.
Tate is one of the stupidest people, I think, to ever blow up on the internet. If that's your heavyweight intellectual, is Andrew Tate, who, you know, I'm not even a Destiny fan, but if you've ever seen The Space with Destiny and Tate, I mean, it was just embarrassing. Destiny wiped the floor with that guy.
By Ye.
Yeah, okay.
All of these big canceled, the ones that remain canceled, the ones that remain problematic, that is why they are so threatened. Even, dare I say it, by the alt-right from 7 or 8 years ago. Because only the alt-right, only Andrew Tate and the whole masculinity manosphere, only the groypers, only those toxic elements of the right wing have that same energy of high IQ, deep thinkers, young people, extremely energetic, debate bros.
Who is the high IQ, energetic debate bro on the far right? Like, genuinely, because, you know, I'm sure that there will be people of diverse ideological perspectives who watch this video. Tell me who that is. Because in a second, we're about to watch Nick Fuentes versus Dean Withers, a clip from it, just on their debate that they had a few months ago. And Nick is completely unable to defend the religion that he professes. He admits that he is ignorant on the theology, that he can't defend his faith. And nevertheless, he goes and debates it. Like, okay, it's one thing if you believe in something, but you say, I'm not willing to debate it because I'm going to make the faith look bad. It's another thing if you're willing to debate it and you can't. That's embarrassing. So, who are these intellectuals? Because I haven't seen them. Probably the most intellectual guy on the far right is, like, I don't know, Jared Taylor. He presents the most laughable arguments I've ever seen in my life. Yeah, I mean, he got beat by Dean Withers at some random college the other day. So, yeah.
These other guys are out of gas. That's where they fear us. So I saw the Peterson clip, and I think there was so much more to it than meets the eye. To me, that's the beginning of the end. If Ben Shapiro and Jordan Peterson and Charlie Kirk can't annihilate the SJWs anymore.
Okay, so I think that is that for that. Let's see this clip right here real quick on, you know, actually, there's one more clip. Hold on. I'm going to have to do a little cut. All right. Here's the next clip real quick before we get into their little debate.
The kid is something. You are nothing.
Wow. Hold on. That's really loud.
And everybody posted that clip. Everybody said, wow. Because that's exactly what Peterson has been doing for 10 years. Talking a lot, saying nothing. Yapping about deep stories and literature and Dostoevsky and totalitarianism and talking about heavy themes that have heavy connotations. But saying the words life and death, saying the words eternity and all that in itself does not convey meaning. In itself does not contain context.
See, that there's a huge irony here, and it's that the far right likes to masquerade as a bunch of intellectuals. They fantasize about ancient Rome and Greece, but they themselves are completely ignorant on the topics. I was, you know, browsing through Substack earlier, and I saw some, you know, far right randos just talking about Platonism, and it was just ridiculous nonsense. They were trying to connect Thales' belief in the arche, the fundamental constituent of everything being water, to Platonism. It's just really, really weird stuff. The pre-Socratic, which is pertinent to Platonic philosophy, is Heraclitus, not Thales. So unless you're going to stretch that back and say Thales has some degree of pertinence, therefore, you know, by some misconstruing of the transitive property, he's relevant to it, just doesn't make any sense. And that's what all these people do. They profess, you know, themselves to be intellectuals, but if I were to question Nick on, you know, just basic aspects of his religion or of Western intellectual history, he would be completely ignorant on it. And, you know, given that that is the case, I don't think you can criticize others for spewing hot air. One of my main points in this video is just that he is right. The liberals have won. The liberal debate bros have won. They are smarter. They're higher IQ. They're better at debating. And that has its own, you know, negative consequences that I'll talk about in another video. But he is wrong that some high IQ group of people are coming to replace them. You know, the most threatening ideological opposition might be, you know, the Vance, Vivek, you know, this sort of colorblind meritocracy crowd. At least there's something there. But, I mean, what are groypers doing that is like intellectual? You know, I scroll through Twitter and I see them complaining about Hermione being cast as an Indian girl or something. Like, is that the pressing issue? I see another guy, Ancient of Real. These are just some people that I retweeted today. And he's saying, you know, I would rather live in the slums with white people than live next to Mohammed in a middle class or upper class neighborhood. It's like, okay, so the far right has fallen so far down that they are now arguing in favor of the stagnation or even of a shrinking of the American economy in the name of keeping it white. It's just remarkable. It's remarkable how idiotic these people are. Yeah, I saw another guy on Substack. He was like, do leftists or liberals have any argument in favor of diversity or immigration? I've never seen it. And, you know, I reply and I say it's very simple. It's an argument from necessity. You know, I bring up things like the race for AI, the need for capital, the need for a growing economy. I use Japan as an example of a country that pursued isolationist, protectionist policies, and as a result of that, fell from the premier Asian power down to a stagnant country that is reliant on the West. And, you know, the response is probably something like, well, I'd rather live in a poor country with white people than in a, you know, successful country with a bunch of brown people. And it's like, hey, idiot, your security rests upon power. The only reason these countries like Japan are okay, are safe in the modern world is because they exist due to the security guarantee that is provided by the United States. And in the world in which there is a race for AI, and in which the winner of that race will determine the geopolitical future for the foreseeable future, in that world, you need America to win. And if America doesn't win, well, then China sets the tone and say goodbye to your sovereignty. That's the reality. And what is a necessary condition for success in this race? Well, it's a lot of labor, both elite and non-elite labor. The non-elite labor fuels the growth of the economy in terms of GDP. The elite labor is the thing that cultivates and develops the technology necessary to win the race. And so it's a very practical, grounded argument based in pragmatic realities. But, you know, the far right just doesn't engage in that kind of argument. They don't engage with that stuff. He didn't even reply because these people ask for something, and then if they get it, well, you know, no point in even responding, right? But I think you get the point. Let's go back. Because I've been going for quite a while now. We see Nick's position. He believes that, you know, this has exposed the vacuousness of the previous intellectuals on the right, and now it's the groupers' time to shine. Things are changing. Well, let's see if that's true, because Nick has actually interacted with one of these figures before, Dean Withers. How did he hold up? Let's give it a little watch. 1.5.
So, you know, there's just a lot of assumptions there that kind of need to be interrogated.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think what needs to be interrogated is the fact that you asked me, well, what do I do if a group of people likes to murder, rape, and kill others? What if God said that?
Then
I think that's the question that we need to ask.
Then we would have to do it.
Wait, really? If God told you to rape and kill a baby, would you do it?
Well, God would never do that because God is good and those things are evil.
Okay, so raping and killing is evil. So when he commanded people to kill the babies in Malachi in 1 Samuel 15:3, that was evil?
God is telling us to rape and kill babies right now?
So specifically about killing, in 1 Samuel 15:3, he did command Saul and his men to kill the Amalekite babies.
Rape babies? He told them to rape babies?
No, to kill babies.
Well, yeah, then if I were one of those guys, I would have done it, but not rape them.
Okay, so if God commanded you to kill a baby today, would you do it?
Yes.
Okay, so why would you kill a baby, but you wouldn't rape a baby?
Because that would be cruel or something.
Wait,
This is the intellectual. So, first off, he holds the position that if God told him to kill a baby, he would do it. But if God told him to rape a baby, he wouldn't do it. That is irreconcilable. There is no way in which you hold those two positions. Either you do what God commands, even when it conflicts with your moral intuitions, or you don't. There's no middle ground there. And so that position in and of itself is stupid. Then he goes further to say that he wouldn't rape the baby because that would be cruel or something. First off, according to what standard? Because baked into the hypothetical is the command being issued from the good, from God. And now you're saying that, well, no, that command would be cruel. According to what standard? Because you just had a command issued from the good itself. So, and then on top of that, what Dean is about to point out is that the implication would then be that the other act is not cruel, or at least not sufficiently cruel to dissuade him from following the command. It's I mean, he gets completely tripped up here. This is just embarrassing from Nick.
is killing a baby not cruel?
In the Old Testament, it worked differently.
completely irrelevant. Who cares how it worked in the Old Testament? You just said you would do it today. This is a point that seems either lost on Nick, in which case he's an idiot, or something that he deliberately avoids, in which case he is a rhetorician, sophist, who's unwilling to actually engage in the material and does the same kind of dodging tactics that we see Peterson do.
No, I'm
That's
talking
a
about,
fallen world.
you particularly said that you would kill a baby today if God asked you, but you
If God
wouldn't
told us, yeah.
rape a baby if God asked you. So how
Not
can we
rape.
kill a baby today but not rape a baby?
Because the context of the Old Testament is that it's a fallen world, and that's the context you're talking about. You said that in the Old Testament,
Dude, we're not
God
talking
said
about dude, please
hang on,
answer my
yeah,
question.
we
This is a
literally
genuine
are.
answer.
Well, if
You
we're not
told me
talking about
today-
wait, if we're not talking about the
Give me
Old
30
Testament, what are we talking about?
How about right now? Because you just said you would do it right now.
About the fact that you told me today, if God commanded you to kill a baby, you would do it. And then I followed that up by asking you, if God commanded you to rape a baby, would you do it? And you
But
said
God
no,
would do that
because
because
that's
it's evil.
cruel. Okay, so killing a baby today, you would do if God commanded it, but raping a baby today, you wouldn't do because God wouldn't command
Well,
it.
you-
because it's evil.
first of all-
are you making the implication that
first
killing a
of
baby
all-
today is an evil?
No. What you said is that in
Okay,
the
so
Old
then you wouldn't
Testament.
do that either, right?
Well, hang on,
It's
hang on.
seemingly a
Let's rewind.
contradiction.
Let's rewind because you said in the Bible God says to rape babies. Can you just
No, I
retract
said
that? 'Cause I
kill
got a rabbit.
So now he pivots. Now he goes back to, this claim. Whether or not it's true is completely irrelevant to the fact that he just got demolished in this line of questioning. So we've seen either incompetence or maliciousness, and now we're seeing pivoting. It's completely embarrassing. And had this been as televised, as publicized, had Nick been as public a figure as Peterson, this would have went just as viral as the clip with Danny. But because, Nick is still somewhat fringe, and because, this debate wasn't as publicized, these moments aren't shown. But I mean, this is as embarrassing, if not a worse performance, because Nick is clearly trying to engage and failing.
Now,
No,
if you
it's kill
rewind,
babies.
yeah, okay, people can rewind the clip. You said,
So we'll skip a little bit. He, Dean says that, just what we're going to skip is Dean says, if he said that, he didn't mean to say that. Nick goes over, how the Old Testament is a fallen world or whatever. There's one more little part I want to see.
the Messiah. Thou shalt not covet the baby. No, world which was fallen in the Old Testament. It doesn't mean that.
And if you want to go back and go watch this debate, he literally says nothing here. He just goes over the story of the Old Testament.
And of course, for no reason, that's immoral. Ordinary exception based on the fallen old world. That Jesus Christ arrived. No, God, Trump's making your grocery. Does that mean that God is not an authority? I would have to trust God if we truly of a God or good. It's just like cheap, low IQ, left-wing bullshit. But anyway, go ahead.
Cool, thank you. So I hear everything that you just said. I will give that a great response. I sure did. But before I give that a response, I wanted to take a brief moment to go back to the question that I was attempting to get you to answer prior. I understand that you just kind of gave me the story of the Old and New Covenant. We had different rules before, the Messiah came back down, created the New Covenant, whatever. I get it. Thank you. Okay? But the question that I asked you was, if God commanded you to kill a baby, would you do it? You said yes. I then asked you, Nick Fuentes, if God commanded you to rape a baby, would you do it? And you said, no, that's too cruel. If you'd like to take 15 seconds to kind of clear up that gap, like, does that make the implication that killing a baby
I
isn't
answered
cruel?
the question. I answered the question.
So refuses to answer.
You didn't.
Okay. Is this a debate about Christian nationalism, or is this like a weird new atheist? And by the way, why do you think killing is wrong? Where do you get that information from?
So first of all, I don't think that killing's inherently wrong. I think that murder is wrong. Okay, justified
Oh, okay, so you
termination
agree
of
with me
life.
then?
Right, and then what I'd say here about murder is that's just going to be driven given my intuitions. I'm a subjectivist. We all know this, but I think you are too. Would you agree with
You're
me that
subjectivist.
would you agree with me that objectivism can be defined as like a stance independent, like truth?
It's an independent truth? What did you say? I didn't hear you.
Like a stance independent truth. That's what it means.
A
for somebody to be
stance,
objective
independent truth?
truth. Yeah.
So, I mean, Nick just here just fails to comprehend basic philosophy. A stance independent truth just means that something is true without reference to your particular stance. That would be something that's objective. It's not mind dependent.
Of independent truth, or that there is independent truth?
Okay. Wow.
The sentence construction doesn't make sense.
Okay, so like in philosophy, right? When we're referencing terms such as moral objectivism or moral subjectivism, we define objectivism given when I say murder is wrong, that is true independent of any stance, of any actor, of any mind. Okay. When I say
Yeah, no, I
something is
understand what you're
objectively
saying. I don't understand the construction. I'm not. You're like mumbling to yourself. Yeah,
No,
I
I'm
believe
just
yes,
asking you to agree with
subjectivism
my
is that there's an
definition of
independent truth. Yes.
okay. So is more
Subjectivism is that there's an independent truth. That's not even the case.
is morality independent of God?
No, because God is morality. God is good.
So morality is subject to God.
Okay. Ooh, could God create a box so heavy he couldn't lift it? Yeah, that's great. So if you believe
Wait,
that
that would be
killing
a
is not,
contradiction. I didn't give you
I
a
know.
contradiction. I just showed you that you're a
know.
moral subjectivist.
I know. Thank you. So,
That's cute, huh?
so where do you believe that?
And so there, instead of actually engaging with Dean's point, he just, acts as though he was calling it a contradiction. He wasn't calling it a contradiction. He was making what amounts to a stupid point. But it's not stupid for the reason that Nick said. Dean has run this argument before. It's this idea that, objectivity means, dependent on, subjectivity means dependent on a subject. Is God a subject? Well, therefore, it's still moral subjectivism. It's a bad argument because the objective-subjective distinction applies to the world, right? It has to do with the fact that there are subjects, namely minds, and things exist that are dependent on the mind, things exist that are independent of the mind. That's where you get the distinction from. But if you take the worldview of like a Christian, there is, you can't apply that to a different domain. You're trying to take the notion of objective, subjective, and apply it to the domain of God. Well, the distinction doesn't even exist there because there is nothing that is independent of God. And so the distinction would no longer even separate, categories of being. It would quite literally change the meaning from mind dependent, because why is subjective? Why does it even mean what it means? Well, it means something because we have fallible, limited minds that interact with something external to ourselves. So if you take that notion and attempt to apply that to, a being that is literally responsible for everything, that is all-knowing, that is all-encompassing, you are doing what's called equivocating. You're taking one meaning of the word subjective in your premises and spitting out a conclusion with a different meaning such that the argument is rendered invalid. And so it's a very, easy point to push back against, but Nick can't do it because he's just not capable of debating these things. So my point here is just that I don't think anyone really should worry about the new right, that this sort of renaissance that people on the right seem to think is happening. They think that there's some uprising that's happening with the Groypers and, everyone is starting to believe what they believe. It's like, dude, if you put Nick in the same position that Peterson was in, he performs just as poorly. The right is just devoid of intellect for the most part. And so, it's nothing to write home about. But that's that. Just wanted to cover the Jordan Peterson video, Nick's reaction to it, and why I think that it's pretty laughable that he's so, quick to dismiss these figures when he himself can't stand up to the same scrutiny that he criticizes others for failing against. So that's that. Again, check out the Substack, check out the Twitter. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you later.